project. The benefits of taking this alternative approach of no rules, throwing it all away, is that you do get all the benefits of BIM then. So if you're looking at a bigger project, a bit more complex, a bit more time involved in it, you start to think, actually, if I've got a schedule of 300 doors rather than just 10 doors, actually having a schedule which is automatically up to date is quite a significant benefit. You know, this one person doesn't have to spend a day going through checking all your doors because it's all there in front of you on a schedule, straight from the model. The longer durations also gives you a bit more of a kind of comfort zone. So actually, you know, if you muck something up or if something goes awfully wrong at some point, you've got a little bit of time to actually catch that up and to work it out. Or if something in the model goes a bit wrong or something gets done incorrectly and it has a, you know, some kind of challenge or something like that you just don't know how to overcome, you've got the opportunity to actually address that and actually do something with it. Whereas on a small project, true, you might not have those challenges, but at the same time you never got to get an opportunity to overcome them and understand how to go through that process. And the real key thing is that people get really excited, really involved once they get on board. There's a bit of an obstacle first to get them on board to the change. But once they get on board, they can be really excited, really engaged, really feel like they're doing something which is groundbreaking and interesting. And it means that they really learn stuff, because people always learn more from the challenges and the challenges they've overcome, and feeling that they've done something that is a real accomplishment, something they can feel proud of, and not just showed up and did a bit more on the computer and went home kind of thing, but actually really got involved. So, really huge benefit. And of course, the other side of it is there are risks, and this is the kind of thing I needed to put to my directors and say, you know, I know there's risks, it's not all just easy sailing, big change, big project. You know, there's a whole company's reputation at stake if something goes horribly wrong, you know, or could lose a huge amount of money if it's a fee on a big project and, you know, you have to redo the whole thing or something like that. So there is a lot more at stake. I mean, you know, that's also kind of positive in some ways, because if there's a lot more at stake, people make sure it does work, but it is a big risk. The other side is that if you're trying to do more challenging stuff, you do have to plan and think more about people's training, people's support, to make sure people can actually do what they're meaning to do on the project. You can't just expect that from day one they're going to be able to deliver what they would be normally expected to deliver when they're changing the whole process and software. And of course, the ultimate kind of risk or downside of it is that actually, if you're talking about a long-term project, you don't know until you finished it for sure. You don't know for sure in a comparable way to another project what the benefits financially or time-wise are. I mean, on the project we did, at every stage through it we could see what the benefits are, but it wasn't, you don't have a kind of direct like-for-like comparison between one project and another to say, okay, we know this project took this long, this one only took this long, or, you know, those kind of side of things. So there's definitely downsides. But the difference is kind of the mindset in a way of saying, look, BIM is a really big opportunity. It's an opportunity to change the way we do things. It's going to be beneficial to our business, it's going to be beneficial to our clients, and, you know, working in sustainable design from our point of view, it's beneficial really to the whole delivery process and what's coming out the other end. So it's looking at how can we deliver things that are cost competitive, that are better designed, that are better for the environment, better for the people. It's just one little kind of slight interlude into this, though, in terms of whether you go down one route or go down the other route, is that the point I made about not having a plan to go back to CAD is that there's a guy in the States who blogs about this and has done for a long time, and he's put these graphs up quite a while ago, which you can find on his blog on a post called "How BIM Can Bankrupt Your Firm." It's a nice controversial title, but the point is that when you're modelling in BIM, because you're doing a lot of modelling, the early stage of the project, there's a bit more investment in time in building up a model. Whereas when you're working in CAD, you tend to be doing drawings as you go along, so you don't do the drawing until you kind of need to do it. Whereas when you talk about a digital model, you need to build up a model to a certain degree before you can produce any drawings. So CAD, you want to draw a plan, you know, one person a week, they produce a plan. BIM, you want to produce a plan, you're going to have, you know, maybe 2 people, 2 weeks or something like that, build up a model, and then you won't just get the plan, you get a whole lot more out of it, but you still, if the plan was all you needed, it took you that bit longer. So BIM has more time early on in terms of developing things to get the documentation, whereas CAD kind of follows this notional kind of curve. Now these are a bit abstract because, you know, no project quite follows these, but the thing is, if at this point you're on your BIM path, you've spent all this time developing your model, you then say, shit, this is not working, we're going back to CAD, you've suddenly got a heck of a lot more work to go back and then start to do everything in 2D from scratch again. So you can see why I'm saying about bankrupting your firm, because you kind of, this is a lot of work and then you're doing a whole lot of extra, a lot of work. So our pilot project, this is the project that we did. This is started in 2006, I think, and finished a few years ago now. And so it was about, I think it's probably about 6 years of my life or something invested in this project, it feels like. And this has got a primary school at one end, so classrooms, kind of PE hall, and this courtyard, admin block in the middle, and then down this end is a special needs school, so it's got from 4-year-olds right through to 16 plus 16-year-olds special education needs. They've got dining halls in the middle, and then courtyards, and PE halls, and then pools, and therapy rooms, and all sorts of other things in it. So you can see this is not the kind of simple shoebox kind of project. This was a big project, and this was actually the biggest project Architype had ever at that point in time. So I was risking quite a bit putting my neck out saying this is when we should change. But on the other hand, the benefits are clear. You know, we're doing a big project. Can we really deliver it on our promises if we're going to try and do this in traditional 2D CAD? My job is going to be to coordinate a bunch of drawings on this. I don't want to do it in 2D, to be quite frank. I want to make sure this has got a model, so I know that if I check something in one drawing, it's going to be the same in another drawing, because it's all coming from the model. So this project is called Willows, and it's got Stowlawn Primary School and Green Park Special Needs School and the community. It's a lifelong learning campus. It's got early years, nursery, plus elderly kind of facilities and things in it. It's in Wolverhampton in the Midlands. It was complex from a design point of view. There were multiple clients, so different schools, community groups, council, all of those involved. Fairly complex geometry, just the sort of nature of the building and size of it and things. And also developed over 6 phases. And the site has got 10 mine shafts on it, because a lot of Wolverhampton and the Black Country area is all on made ground from coal mining history. So a lot of complexity, a lot of challenges, aside from CAD and documentation, just real life challenges on the project. So really interesting for everyone involved in it. So changing to BIM from CAD is just part of the equation. There's a lot more interest in the project than people working on it. And there's just a snapshot from part of the project as it was finished, with some of the different colours and shapes and things involved. So as I said before, there is kind of certain risks involved in taking this kind of approach. And so to ensure that this is going to work, there's a number of things that we put in place to make sure we weren't just sticking our neck on the line and then winging it. And some of these things were around the training and support side of things. So quite often people get sent off on BIM programs or Revit programs or ArchiCAD or whatever software, and they just go and kind of do it in a classroom somewhere with somebody that delivers training. And we decided that wasn't really the approach we wanted to take. We thought it was much more important that the training was very specific for what we were doing. And a lot of the people that come around and given us talks about BIM from the software vendors come along, they roll up, they plug their laptop in, they put something on the screen, and it looks like a dinky little brick house by Barrett Homes or something like that. And they say, oh, here's how you move a window or a door. I mean, it's just like, we don't design anything like that. It's really not helpful. And never mind that the benefits and the ways of using technology are the same. Most architects look at something and they look at the kind of design and what they see as a building, and they're not kind of seeing the other side of things. So we really decided the important thing was to get somebody in that knew what they're doing, sit down with the project team in a conference room in our office, get them all on the computers, get them doing real life exercises that relate to the project and are bespoke to their kind of skill level. So we did it a couple of times, did it early on the project, really basic skills, came back a bit later on, much more high level skills once they'd been working for a period of time. And then we got a different person who came in and then actually went round each person as they were working on the project, sat down right next to them at their elbow, talked about what they were doing, talked about what their frustrations and difficulties were, talked to them about how the software could work and whether they need to change the way they were doing it, or just what tools they could use to do that kind of thing. So really hands-on, one-on-one kind of interaction to give them not just the kind of technical skills, but the kind of confidence to know about how to go about it and how to use the software productively. And then the in-house expert, which is the person that always gets asked all the questions, has to be available to everyone at all times, all hours, and you can kind of take a guess at who ended up doing that role in our projects in our office. And you know, that's kind of in a sense how I've ended up in the role of champion BIM in the company, and then I've kind of, you know, evolved a little bit to champion that across the industry, really pushing for BIM, for sustainability, and for green design as well. So you see just a little bit more from the projects. This is an interior, there's a library and an IT suite, and then there's a courtyard that's all on the primary school side of it. So you can see also that the kind of materials we use very much focused on using low impact materials, healthy materials, so a lot of timber, things like linoleum on the floor, which are made of linseed chalk, and not using vinyl or kind of materials that have got impacts for human health or for the environment. Lots of natural lights, although the photographer always loves to switch the lights on as well as have the lights in to take photographs, which is always quite embarrassing for us, but he always seems to do that. The point being that we weren't compromising to do this on BIM. We were doing our design, using software, using the process to do what we wanted to do, and not thinking, okay, we're going to do a shoebox, or we're going to do something, which, because there is often the kind of thought that, oh, BIM, if you look at the kind of Revit things or the Architype thing, you know, the kind of publicity kind of show reels that they put out there about what their software does, they're quite often, you know, corporate headquarters or commercial buildings or what have you. And there is a little bit of danger that people kind of think, oh, BIM, that's just about delivering office buildings or industrial buildings or whatever. But for us, it was really just about the right tools and processes to support our process, really. And then the other things we did to make sure it really worked was looking at the people that were working on the project and looking at making sure they did the right kind of things. So just because somebody was an architect at a certain level in their career, or just because someone was a student at a certain level of knowledge, didn't necessarily mean they should do traditionally what they might have been asked to do. So the reality is that sometimes the younger people with less CAD background actually picked up this much faster, because they weren't trying to unlearn something, they were just learning something new. And from their point of view, they were open to it, they could see no reason why not to do it this way. Whereas a more established architect has got, you know, their career to that point well established in doing things a certain way, knowing how to do things a certain way, and kind of relying on their own competency and their own ability to be able to do that. So actually, sometimes the more junior staff were helping the more senior staff to do some of the things, and sometimes they were doing roles on the project that were a little bit more senior than they might have done on another project, because they developed their capabilities in the process.
How many people did you have working on that?
Sorry,
how many people did you have working on it?
6 people, I think, was at one time. Yeah.
Did you decide to put more people on it because it was a normal BIM project, or was it set as a standard what you go with?
No, it was more like we decided to put less people on it. Basically, we looked at it, and you know, we do a kind of process of estimating how much work's needed and how many people need to do it. Yeah. So we kind of did that, and then kind of subtracted one person and hoped for the best. And actually, I was going to come to that a bit later on, but actually, you know, we needed less people in the end, and it was fine from that point of view. But the other side of that was actually choosing a slightly smaller team and knowing that there's potential that it's going to be a bit harder work, but meaning we're going to get a tighter knit team because everyone's going to be working closer. Whereas, you know, having a bigger, spread out team and all that has its own kind of problems of just managing team dynamics. So 6 people was quite a large team to work on one project in our office, because at that time we had only maybe 16 people in the office or something like that. So this is like a third of the office working on one project. So it's quite a big, quite a big part of the office. The other thing, which is really important, is that you get people onto this kind of software and this kind of process, and some people just absolutely love it, and they go and get their head down and they want to model every door handle, every screw, every nut, every bolt, everything. You give them something and it's kind of like a stud wall, they want to start modelling the studs. It's like, it's really not the point, because a stud wall is a kind of system that, you know, a builder knows how to build it, you don't need to model every stud. And so we had to be quite careful about managing that people were modelling what was needed to produce the outcomes and the outputs for the project. So, you know, if the output is a drawing, which has a kind of 3-dimensional view, a schedule, plus a couple of plans and elevation or something, you know, one particular example is like a bike shed. You know, there's a guy sitting there and he's like modelling the bike shed down to the nth degree of detail. It's kind of like, you know, it's fun, it's great, it looks great, but actually it wastes a lot of time and it makes the file incredibly big. You're just adding so much memory onto the file, which really doesn't need to be. At the end of the day, there's one A1 sheet goes out, and they build something on site which takes them a couple of days to knock up. And this guy's kind of invested his life for a couple of weeks in doing something because he just loves it so much. So, you have to manage that in an architectural office anyway, because some people do that, whatever opportunity they've got, but it's more important when you're working in digital, three-dimensional models and things. And then the last bit of it that was really important, I thought, which is something I really pushed a lot, was to make sure that the people that are working on the project in the office get out there and get involved in the real world of the project, so that they're not just developing a digital model and then seeing a drawing go out, but they're actually going on site, or they're going to interact with the clients, and then know the impact of doing something one way in the design touches the people's real lives that are going to use this building, going to operate it or whatever, and understand that if you draw something a certain way, it has to be built, so the people who are going to build it have to understand how that's going to work. And that's much more important when you start doing modelling rather than drawing, because it's very easy to just pop out a drawing with a few lines. It looks fine as a drawing, it presents well, it's got some notes and dimensions on it. When you start doing something in 3D, it pushes you to think much more, what are we actually building rather than what are we drawing? And so the more junior people in the team didn't have that kind of knowledge. They'd only just come out of university, they hadn't actually been on many sites. So it's really important to get them out onto the site, to get them talking to clients, all that kind of stuff, so that it's a real thing. It's not just a kind of abstract, computer game, computer visualization or whatever. And then this is just another shot from inside the building. Sorry, the lighting's not so good for a darker slide like this, but this is just a rendering taken straight out of the models. It's not a photo of the building. It's from the software. But really good for communicating with the client on this kind of thing, because they can see the space as it would be. And a school client particularly, but it's usually the case on a lot of projects, they just have no idea when they look at a two-dimensional drawing. It's not their job to understand what a drawing is or how to build something. It's their job to teach, or, well, Jenny should understand that, what she's teaching. But for somebody teaching primary school kids or things, their job is to teach. And they, you show them the drawing, they kind of, oh, it looks good to me, but they don't really know what you're talking about. Where you show them something like this, and you kind of move around sometimes, or we produced a short film going through the building, and it's kind of like, it suddenly all becomes real, and becomes an actual thing rather than an abstract drawing. And the lighting and things like that, so that you can move the sunshine and show them, in the morning it's like this, the afternoon it's like this. It's just like really, really beneficial in terms of the client really buying in and understanding what you're designing and what you're delivering. So in terms of results, so a little bit like you touched about with the project team there, is that we did a Stage D output in 4 weeks. Now, Stage D for this was a full planning set. I would caveat that to say that the building was more or less designed at that point, so we weren't designing and doing it. We had a design that was already done in mostly in 2D with a bunch of drawings and sketches. We'd done a full kind of Stage C with kind of CAD drawings and stuff. So we modelled it, produced the drawings very quickly though. And there was 2 people working on it, so it was me and one Part 2 student who used the software a bit before, so we got them involved in it very quickly. And then the Stage E, F team, so doing the details, going through on the construction packages. We had, as I said, we had 6 people when it was at the height of it, and then it trailed off to more like 4 people towards the end of it. And this was the same size team that was working on another school project at the same time. So this was 6,500 square metres, like I said, £17 million project. But at the same time, we had another primary school, 2,500 square metres, so a third of the size effectively, with roughly the same size team of people working on it at the same time, because they were doing it in 2D CAD. So every drawing was a separate file, working on coordinating, whereas we had one model producing all the drawings out of that. And you can see here, it's a lot of drawings come out of the model. And we sat back at the end of, when, well, we didn't really sit back, but we did kind of take stock when we got Stage F out, all the kind of tender drawings and stuff. It was kind of like, there's a ton of paper when you print all that out and you hand off a box to the tenderers and you think, there's no way we could have delivered that if we were doing that in 2D CAD in that time period with that team on it. If we doubled the team, yeah, maybe, but even then, you increase the team size, you have a lot more coordination, communicate, all this kind of stuff to manage as well. So there was that side. And then the productivity side of things, because it's quite a complex school, when you're designing a school, you've always got area schedules, space schedules that you're working to, and the funding relates to that. So, room sizes are quite critical, and then the number of rooms and how much that adds up to as a gross internal area. and how much of that is allocated to circulation, how much is allocated to plant area, how much is allocated to teaching area, all these things. And as project architect, early on, it was my job to manage that kind of stuff quite a bit, because that's what kind of goes back to the funding client, so the council in this case, not so much the user clients, but the funding side of it. They want to know, anytime they see a design, how does that compare to what the brief areas are? Is it over, so are you still working to reduce it, or is it on what it should be? And for me, that was taking me a day or 2 days to go through a set of 2D drawings, an Excel spreadsheet, measuring, comparing, double checking, making sure it all added up, all that kind of thing. Whereas as soon as we got that into the model, that was there live at any point. Any change, the numbers are there. And I've got a slide a bit later on to show how that works in a sense. But that was, you know, huge productivity gain, huge peace of mind to just know that it's accurate. You don't have to go through it again and again and again. And then the thing is, when it got onto site, is that any project on site, if there's any kind of issue with coordination, and, you know, there's no, I don't think there's any kind of secret that, you know, best will in the world, it's not fully 100% everything coordinated, done and dusted. Things come up on site, you know, product specs change or whatever, there's always something that needs coordination or something that comes up. And so we get a request for some kind of information from site, whether it's, you know, dimension or a bit of clarification or something. And in a traditional 2D CAD thing, if you don't have a drawing that shows that clearly already, sometimes you've got to do a whole new drawing just to work out what the answer to that is, which could be a person's, you know, it could be a day or 2 days of somebody's time to work something out like that. You know, you hope the information's there and you just put a dimension on a drawing, fine, you know, all good. But with the model, it meant that at any point, if they asked for something else, you know, we could slice a section through the model somewhere that we'd never done a section for, and we could tell them straight away, you know, this is what the dimension is, this is what the relationship between the structure and the cladding, or, you know, whatever the kind of question was, it was all there, so it was very, very quick. And even somebody that was not intensely involved in the project, but was familiar with it, could jump in there, do that, slice the model, check something, and then just produce the information the contractor needed. And that is just a really big benefit when it's on site, because if you ever get to working on a project on site, on the design side of things, it's quite a stressful time for a project. You know, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that what gets built is what you designed and what you intended. So it's great to have anything that kind of reduces that stress and makes it a more efficient process. And then this is just another photo inside one of the circulation spaces, looking up through a couple of the levels of the building. You can see some of the geometries, kind of a few kind of twisty angle bits and things like that, which you know, much easier to understand what's going on in 3D and get all that kind of stuff coordinated as well. So, you know, just really simple things that you get in 3D CAD also, but just a lot more sophisticated doing it in the BIM process. And then unexpected kind of results we also got, when the client rang us up one day and said, look, the cleaners from the council are putting together their next year's budget, and they want to know how much they're going to charge the council. You know, council's got to outsource this to something. It's the cleaning department, but they now have to give their own council line manager a cost for how much they're going to clean the building for or whatever. And they want to know what the volumes of the new building are. They're not just measuring on floor areas now, they need to know the volumes. They've got to, you know, clean up high or maybe clean ceilings or something. They never quite explained it to me fully, but the bottom line was they wanted volumes of the building. And you know, any other project we would have been a bit stuck and said, sorry, I don't think we can give you that. We can give you some estimates. But on this project, because it's in 3D, because the models are there, because it's all scheduled, it's fine. You just say to the model, actually, can you schedule us the volumes as well as the areas? And it's all done. You know, it's not quite the press of a button that you'd like to say it is. There's a little bit of time, and you know, you need to have a bit of human input to make sure that it's not giving you stupid kind of information. That, you know, as with anything done on a computer, it's, you know, rubbish in, rubbish out. I think you've got to make sure it is doing what you think it ought to be. But that was great. You know, we could just say yes, send them off a schedule, done, you know. The client got what they wanted without any trouble from our point of view at all. And then I've already kind of alluded to the side of things with junior staff way outperforming what our expectations of them were. So staff with no experience designing or running a project work on this, and then, you know, doing a job that would have been a junior architect doing generally. And you know, fantastic from our point of view to see them. And also just from their own personal confidence and development level, that they know they can do something much more than what they can see their peers that are at the same level as them doing when they're just working away on CAD to push out some drawings. Great for them moving on to future projects, and, you know, whether they stay with the company or move elsewhere also. And then also, as a kind of bonus, there's a spread of BIM skills. So, you know, this is in a sense was a pilot project, see whether it was going to work or not work for the company, but, you know, it was kind of inevitable by the time we got towards the end of it, because all the people working on it had now changed their kind of mind about how they worked. And they didn't want to go back to doing 2D CAD, they didn't want to go back to doing manual schedules or manual taking off things, all that kind of stuff. You know, for those of you doing QS or kind of construction management side of things and all that, it's like, you know, there's the scale rule or the kind of the measurement tool on a drawing on a computer, and then there's just pressing a button and kind of scheduling something off a computer. It's, you know, it's a big change. And in terms of some of the architects' work on this, it kind of takes a bit of a load off the production and the kind of manual labour side of things, and gives them a bit more freedom and time back on the design side. I think at this stage, in the pilot project, I'd say none of them were super what do you call it, confident and kind of polished in using the software to do everything they wanted to design. But once they got their design to a certain stage, they wanted to follow this path to make sure they could do the documentation, the production, coordination, all that kind of stuff. So just to kind of delve into that just a little bit more, there's this kind of thing which is, actually I've taken the credit off, I used to use the credit for this. This comes from something somebody did a few years ago.